Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most shocking and mysterious events to hit Russia's military infrastructure in recent years. The explosion that shook Russia's southern command. This wasn't just any explosion, it was an event that sent shockwaves across the region, raised eyebrows in Moscow, and stirred questions throughout the international community. What really happened that day? Was it sabotage, an accident, or a sign of something much deeper? Let's unpack everything, piece by piece, and explore what made this explosion so significant. The Russian Southern Military Command, based in Rostov-on-Don, is one of the most critical nerve centers of Russia's military operations. It oversees forts that stretch across including the volatile southern regions, including the North Caucasus, Ukraine and Georgia, and the borders with Ukraine and Georgia. It's no exaggeration to say that this headquarters plays a crucial role in directing operations tied to the ongoing conflicts around Ukraine. That's why when the explosion hit, it didn't just cause damage, it sent a message. Reports first began circulating in the early morning hours. Locals in Rostov-on-Don described hearing a thunderous boom that shook buildings and shattered windows across several blocks. People rushed out of their homes, confused and terrified. Videos began flooding social media. Clips of smoke rising into the sky, sirens wailing, and emergency vehicles racing toward the source of the explosion. Within minutes, the city was alive with speculation. At first, no one knew exactly what had happened. Some thought it was a gas leak. Others whispered that it was a drone attack. The Russian authorities, when a military kept quiet, as they often do when a military site is involved, but the scale of the blast made it impossible to hide. Witnesses described flames shooting into the night, debris scattered across the streets, and a heavy military presence sealing off the area. Something big had clearly gone wrong. By dawn, official statements started to trickle in. Local officials claimed the explosion had occurred in a fuel depot near a military facility. They said it was likely an accident caused by improper storage of ammunition or fuel. But almost immediately, questions began to surface. How could such a critical site, under constant surveillance and strict security, suffer such a massive accident? That's when alternative theories began to take shape. Some sources within Russian media hinted that the explosion of a Ukrainian drone strike. Ukraine had already been targeting military assets deep inside Russian territory, and the Southern Command would be a highly symbolic and strategic target. If it was indeed a Ukrainian strike, it would mark a bold escalation, but others pointed to a different possibility of internal sabotage. Over the past year, mysterious military bases have rocked Russian military accidents remain even on airfield. If many of these incidents remain unexplained, analysts have suggested that anti-war groups or even disgruntled insiders might be behind some of them. Could this explosion have been part of that growing trend of internal dissent? Satellite images released shortly after the blast showed significant damage around the Southern Command compound. Roofs were torn apart, and scorch marks stretched across the perimeter. The explosion was powerful enough to cause secondary fires in nearby buildings. Emergency crews worked through the night to contain the damage, but the destruction was unmistakable. Moscow's reaction was cautious. The Kremlin downplayed the event, describing it as a minor incident under control. But intelligence experts around the world saw it differently. For them, the fact that such an important military hub was hit, regardless of who was behind it, was deeply alarming. It exposed vulnerabilities that Russia didn't want the world to see. People began analyzing every frame of video that surfaced. Some showed small objects flying through the air moments before the explosion, possibly drones. Others suggested that internal ammunition may have cooked off due to overheating or poor handling. but no one could say for sure. The fog of Warsaw military military operations made truth a moving target. Inside Russia, the explosion sparked unease. Social media lit up with discussions about safety and accountability. Some citizens demanded answers, questioning why so many accidents were happening at military facilities. Meanwhile, pro-war voices accused Ukraine and its Western allies of orchestrating attacks deep within Russian territory. The explosion, they said, was proof that Russia was under siege. For Ukraine, if it was involved, the message was clear. Nowhere in Russia is untouchable. Over the past months, Kiev's forces had expanded their drone capabilities, hitting air bases, fuel depots, and logistics hubs far beyond the front lines. Striking the Southern Command would demonstrate not only technological reach but psychological impact. It would show that even the heart of Russian coordination was vulnerable. But from another angle, this explosion highlighted something else entirely: the internal decay within the Russian system. Years of corruption, mismanagement, and crumbling infrastructure have left the military riddled with weak points. Poor storage practices, outdated safety protocols, and negligence have already caused numerous accidental blasts across Russia. It's possible this event was another tragic symptom of that rot. As investigators combed through the wreckage, more questions emerged. Witnesses reported seeing security forces detaining several individuals near the blast site. Russian media outlets were instructed to tone down coverage, suggesting that officials were trying to control the narrative. But in the digital age, controlling information is almost impossible. The footage, the photos, the eyewitness accounts that didn't tell the story, that didn't quite fit the official version, that didn't quite fit the official version. Analysts abroad began debating what the explosion meant for Russia's broader war effort. The Southern Command was responsible for coordinating major operations in Ukraine, especially in the southern front lines. Any disruption there could slow communications, delay reinforcements, or even compromise strategy. Even if the explosion wasn't directly catastrophic to command-up operations, it was symbolically devastating. International observers saw this as yet another sign that the conflict was reaching deeper into Russia's own borders. No longer confined to Ukraine's territory, the war's shadow had stretched into Russian soil, and it was leaving real scars. Every explosion, every fire, every mysterious blast sent ripples of uncertainty through the population. It was ordinary Russian, of how grim reminder of how fragile security had become. Rostov-on-Don isn't just another city. It's a regional hub with nearly 1 million people, located close to the Ukrainian border. For the residents who heard that explosion, who saw their windows shattered and their streets cordoned off by soldiers, the war suddenly felt much closer than ever before. One woman told local reporters she thought it was an earthquake. Another said she saw flames reflected in the windows of nearby apartment buildings. The panic was real, and it was spreading fast. People began stocking up on supplies, fearing further attacks. Others started posting online, pleading for transparency, demanding to know what really happened. The explosion also reignited debates about Russia's preparedness and vulnerability. How could drones, if they were indeed responsible, travel so far undetected? What did this say about Russia's air defense systems, which the government has long boasted about as being among the best in the world? If an adversary could strike so close to the command center, what else could they reach? Some experts argued that this explosion marked a turning point, a moment when Russia's sense of invulnerability cracked. For decades, the Kremlin maintained an image of control, portraying the homeland as safe and untouchable. But now, even the most guarded sites weren't safe. The psychological impact of that realization was immense. In the days that followed, state media tried to shift attention elsewhere. They emphasized successful military operations, aired patriotic psalms, and repeated official claims that everything was under control. Yet on social networks, the story wouldn't die. Every new video clip or witness statement reignited the discussion. The truth had cheeped into the open. Meanwhile, Western intelligence agencies quietly took note. Analysts from the US and Europe began assessing how the explosion might affect Russia's command capabilities. If the strike was external, it meant Ukraine's reach had extended significantly. If it was internal sabotage, it hinted at growing unrest within Russia's own ranks. Either way, it was bad news for Moscow. There's another layer to all of this symbolism. The Southern Command isn't just a military facility, it's a symbol of Russian power in the south, the same command that oversaw operations in Crimea and the Black Sea. To see it in flames, even for a few hours, was to see a crack in the armor of Russian authority. It told the world that power could be challenged, even at home. The incident also had ripple effects in local politics. Rostov officials faced criticism for their handling of the crisis. Emergency services were accused of slow response times, and communication with civilians was poor. Many residents said they learned more from Telegram channels than from official statements. It exposed the deep disconnect between the people and the state, a growing problem in modern Russia. As the investigation continued, leaks began to emerge that explosives had been stored improperly near a heating unit, causing ignition. But few believed that version. Too many coincidences, too many accidents, too much at stake. For many, it was simply another example of the Kremlin trying to hide something explosive, both literally and politically. Internationally, the explosion added pressure to an already tense situation. Western governments called for transparency, while Russian officials accused the West of spreading disinformation. The information war raged alongside the physical one, each side spinning narratives to shape global perception. Through all this, one thing became clear: the explosion wasn't just a physical event. It was psychological warfare in action. Whether caused by a drone, a saboteur, or negligence, it planted seeds of doubt inside Russia. Doubt about security, doubt about control, doubt about how much longer things could hold together. And yet, in the midst of that chaos, life in Rostov went on. People swept broken glass from their windows, businesses reopened, and traffic resumed. But beneath the surface, the unease lingered. You can rebuild a building, but restoring a sense of safety is much harder. As more evidence surfaced, independent analysts concluded that multiple drones had likely targeted the facility. The sound of small engines was heard moments before the explosion, and fragments resembling drone components were found nearby. If true, that meant Ukraine had managed to strike directly at the command heart of southern Russia, an extraordinary feat of precision and audacity. If it was indeed a drone strike, then this explosion wasn't just an isolated incident. It was part of a broader shift in modern warfare. The rise of long-range, low-cost drones has rewritten the rules of conflict. Borders mean less. Distance offers no safety. And even powerful nations like Russia must now contend with invisible threats that can strike any time, anywhere. By the end of that week, the blast site was cleared, the debris removed, and official silence resumed. But no one forgot what happened, the memory of that night. The sound, the shockwave, experiencer, lingered in the minds of sound and fates, of the sound, everyone who experiencer. And beyond Rostov, the world took note. In every major intelligence briefing, analysts now point to the explosion at the Southern Command as a symbol of what's changing in global warfare. Power is no longer defined by the size of armies, but by agility, innovation, and information. A single strike, a single drone, can shift perception, shake confidence, and rewrite narratives. For Russia, that the incident served as a harsh reminder the war it started had come home. For Ukraine, it showed what persistence and creativity could achieve, even against a larger foe. And for the rest of the world, it was a glimpse into the future. A world where explosions like this one might become the new normal. So, as we look back on the explosion that shook Russia's southern command, we're left with a mix of questions and realizations. Who was truly behind it? What vulnerabilities did it expose? And how will Russia respond the next time its own soil trembles under the weight of war? One thing is certain, the sound of that blast didn't just echo through Rostov-on-Don. It echoed through the corridors of power, through the minds of generals, and across the headlines of the world. It was more than an explosion. It was a message. And as the smoke cleared, that message was impossible to ignore. That control is fragile, power can falter, and even the mightiest fortresses can shake when truth and conflict collide. Thank you all for watching. If you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most critical and mysterious events. Until next time, stay aware, stay curious, and remember, the truth, no matter how hidden, always finds its way to the surface.